Hi, my name is Andrew Hartley, and today I'm going to show you how to wind your electric motor. So first things first is we're going to have to clear these channels with an X-Acto knife or any other tool that you have available. And you're just going to want to make sure that they're as clean as you can make them. Now, it's not necessary to do this, but it just makes the whole process much easier when you clean them. And mine are pretty clean because I've been using this core for a while, so take your time on cleaning yours. It can take a while, I know. And once you're done with that, you're going to switch over to the middle. And you're going to want this guy, the inside of it, to be as clear as possible as well. And so just use your X-Acto knife and clean out the channels and the inside, just so that the nicer it is, the easier it's going to be later down the road. Okay, and once you have the first one done, you move over to the second one and you do the same thing. And mine are already pretty clean because I've been, again, using this router or this core for a while. So take your time, feel free to pause the video and finish off cleaning them. But once you're done with that, put away the X-Acto knife, whatever you're using, and come back to the core and just set them right there in front of you for now. So then grab your tool and split it up into these three parts. Now first we're going to be using the bottom half of the tool, the handle. We're going to take the bottom half of our core and we're going to line up these ridges with the channels on the inside. And you're going to slide it on there, push it down as far as it can go, and that's just to make sure that it won't move around and it'll be easier to wind. So then once you have that done, then you take the top part of your core and you line up the inside. So like right now mine aren't lined up. And you do the inside first because it's harder to tell when those are lined up compared to the outside. The outside you can just visually see it, but on the inside you have to like turn it, and it's just not very easy to make sure those are lined up and they stay lined up. So once you have the inside channels lined up, then you make sure the outside is lined up, and you make sure these short guys are lined up with the other short guys and the long ones are lined up with the long ones. So then once you have that, you take your tool, you put the screw part inside the little ring part, and you push it up just a little bit, and then you make sure these ridges line up with the channels that you have on the inside. And then once you have it lined up, you push the top part in as far as it'll go. And now this part is probably one of the hardest parts of using the tool, especially. You're going to have to hold your core as tightly as possible so that it won't rotate. And then you push in on the top part. You push in and you screw it in. And then you screw it in as tightly as you can until you can't anymore. And then once you have that, you look back and you make sure that all these are lined up. So like right now mine aren't lined up, and this isn't that bad, but if yours are off by a good margin, then you might need to pull out the top part and start over again, because you really want to make sure those inside channels are lined up for when you're winding it. So I'm just going to rotate these just ever so slightly so that they're lined up. And I'm going to hope that the inside channels are lined up. Now you want those inside channels to line up so that the core will slip onto these guys, so that it won't move at all when you put it on. Now, if you mess up on lining up the inside channels, you can shave these guys down like what I did on this one. But that's just a pain to do, and it makes it so that the core is loose, and you don't want the core to be loose. Alright, so now that we have the core on the tool, we're going to grab our wire, and we're going to be using 0.21 gauge wire. So this wire is pretty thin, and it can be pretty tricky to use. I've had some trouble with it winding previous generators, but once you get into it, it gets much easier. It's just the beginning stages are kind of hard. So if you get frustrated, just take a breath, step back, and just think about it a little bit more and just come back into it. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick a top side to your tool, and it doesn't matter, the tool is symmetrical, so you can pick any side you want. I'm going to pick this side. So once you pick the top side, you take your wire, a really thin wire, you stick it in the top part of the 3 holes. Once you stick it in the top part, make sure you stick it all the way through, so that a little bit is sticking out the other side. And then you take this wire and you push it down, and then you take some tape. I have some set aside, and you tape it down like so. You don't necessarily have to use the tape, but makes life so much easier when you're winding it, and you just don't have to worry about what the wire is doing, and that your ground is safe, because this part of the wire is going to be our ground. And then we're going to use, once we're done winding it, then the other part is going to be the part that connects to the rest of the wind generator, or the windmill generator. So then you take this wire and you pick slot 1. Now slot 1 can be any slot, preferably right in front of the 3 holes. And so I'm going to pick this slot, and you go in and then you use the right part of the slot to be slot 1. And once you have that, then, so this is my slot 1. What I did on my first generator is I broke off a little piece of this top part of this guy right there, so that I know that it's slot 1. But you can use any type of means to label that that's slot 1. You can put a piece of tape there, you can just do anything, but for my sake, I thought it was the easiest to just snap a little piece of it off. So now I know that that guy is where slot 1 is. So then you wind underneath, you take the wire and you go underneath the little J's, those little hooks. You go underneath 2 of them, so that you come in right to where the other part of this winding goes. And you just skip a whole, like a whole one of these or 2 of these. And that's 1 winding. So then we're going to do this 30 times. And once you're done with that, then you go on to the second one, which is another, it's just 1, it's 2 more away, but you just go down 1, and I'll show you when I get to that. Okay, so I just completed my 30th wind around the first part. And so this is how mine looks right now. And it's not necessary to make sure all of them go underneath those little hooks or those J's down there. But what I found is that later on it makes it a lot easier if you keep the wire underneath those, at least for phase A. Phase B and C, I don't believe that you have to. I think it's just phase A that you do. So then once you have that, you take this part that's now pointing down towards me, and you go 2 away, again underneath that hook. 2, see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, slot 7. This guy. So this is slot 4, slot 7. Yeah. And then you just do the same thing. You go underneath 2 hooks, which is just 2 slots away. You bring it back down, and then you go underneath these 2 hooks, and now you're on your second winding, or second one for this winding, for this part. And you do that again 30 times. Alright, so I just finished the last one, and this is how mine looks so far. Again, all the top parts are underneath those hooks, and all the bottom parts are underneath the hooks as well. You can't see them all, I'm just trying to hold it so that it doesn't come off. And so this is slot 1, because I marked it with that little piece hanging off. And so once you go down into 2 slots, or 3 slots to the left of slot 1, then that marks your last one. And once you're done doing the 30th turn on that one, then you bring it down into that, and then you cut it, which this wire is pretty thin, so you can pull it hard, but I don't like doing that because if I get used to it, then I just snap it in the middle of the winding and it's bad. So I just use some scissors and cut it off, and make sure to give it a good amount of length because you're going to be using this to connect to the rest of your wind turbine. Alright, now once you have that off, then you stick it through the first hole to my left of the first hole that we stuck the ground wire into. So this is where the ground wire is, right there. Now I'm going to stick it in this top one to dignify that it's the end of phase A, or the end of phase A. Stick it all the way through. Pull it through. Now once it's through that, I lift up the tape that I used to tape down the ground part of phase A. Lift that up, preferably without unwinding the last one. I try and slip this guy underneath that. Now you can do this however way you want. I've just found that doing it this way is the easiest for me, but whatever works for you is fine. You just need to know, you need a way to figure out how to tell between the end of phase A and the ground of phase A. So this part, this short little guy, is the ground, and this is the part that you connect to the rest of your wind turbine. So then I tape that down. Make sure it's nice and taped down. Now the tape I'm using isn't really good for this, but again, it doesn't leave any sticky goop or whatever when you take it off. It just comes right off, so that's why I like to use it. And that is the end of phase A. Now we grab the wire that we just cut off from, to start phase B. So again, we do the same thing that we did at the start of phase A. We stick it in the second hole, this guy, second hole, where we stuck the ground wire. Stick it all the way through, and you push it down. Again, you grab a piece of tape to tape it down. Alright, now we got the tape. Tape down the ground part of phase B. Just like that. So now this ground part is taped all the way down. So then it's sticking out right here. This is phase A ground, the top part of the 3 holes. This one, phase A, which comes out of the top part. I know I'm holding it upside down, but when you hold it right, that's the top part. And the middle one is phase B ground. And you take the rest of phase B, the wire, and you stick it in to slot 3. So if this mark signifies slot 1, which is this guy, then slot 3 is going to be that guy. So you put it in there, and then again you try and get it as far under that hook as you can, and then you hook 2 hooks, or you go under 2 hooks, and then you go down, and let's see, if that's slot 3, then you go down in slot 6, and then you go under 2 hooks again, back up to slot 3, and you do that 30 times. Alright, so I'm on 25 right now of the first winding of phase B, and I can't get it underneath those hooks anymore. So that's okay if you can't do it on phase B, but make sure to get all of them underneath the hooks on phase A, because it makes phase B so much easier. Now, I tried as hard as I could to keep all of them underneath the hooks, but again, there's only so much room, so it's okay if you get some wires up on there, but try and get as many as you can down there, because it will make it so much easier for phase C. Alright, so I just completed the 30th turn from on phase B, the first part of it. Now it looks like this right there. There's only one spot, and there's 2 spots, and that is where phase C will fit into. Now you just go down, you go down into the right underneath one hook, and back in, and to the right. So you're skipping 2 slots, and then you go and you do 30 more windings. And again, you try and stay underneath the hooks as much as you can. Okay, so I just finished doing the 30th turn on the last one of phase B. So right now, this is how mine looks so far. And you can tell you're done with phase B when you see the pairs of the wires going down. That is a telltale sign that you did it right. You did phase B right. And as you can see, all of mine, except for a couple, are underneath the J's, the hooks. I tried to do it as well as I can. Again, it's not as important to keep them under the hooks in phase B as it is in phase A, but it just makes life easier in phase C. So whatever you want to do, but I would suggest keeping it under the hooks. Now what we have to do is cut phase B, and I like to try and keep the wires the same length, so I'm going to cut it around here. Doesn't really matter where you cut it, you want a good amount of length just in case you need to do something with it when you put it in your generator, but it doesn't have to be as long as, like, there's no set length that it needs to be. And then you can either put it underneath the tape that you used for phase A, or you can put it underneath the tape used for phase B for ground, but I'm just going to use another piece of tape because I don't want to mess with the ground of phase B. So I stick it through the hole, the second hole, and I stuck phase A through, again to mark it so that I know that this is the end of phase B, not the ground, but the end. And then I take some tape and tape it down. And you can use any type of tape to tape it down. This is just my favorite tape to use so far. But good old electrical tape will work, Scotch tape, any type of tape. Okay, and that marks the end of phase B. And now we start phase C. So phase C is going to start in slot, let's see, so slot 1. And again, I mark slot 1 with a little chip mark. I don't know if you can see that. But phase C is going to start slot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Start in slot 5, so right here. And we're just going to take our wire that we just cut from, and we're going to put it through the final hole that we put the phase. This is phase A, the top one is phase A, ground. So the middle one's phase B, ground, and now the bottom one's going to be phase C, ground. So we stick it all the way through. Okay. And put it through slot 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then just hook it onto something, so somewhere else on the core, so that you can tape this down. And you can untape some of the tape and just slide it under there, but I got a lot of tape, so I'm just gonna use a new piece. Okay. Now, once phase C is taped down, the ground of phase C is taped down, after going through the bottom hole of your tool, it's taped down and you put it through slot 5, you're going to go 2 hooks over, just like phase A and phase B, and hook it into, let's see, slot 6, 7, slot 8. And on this one, what's really nice is you don't have to worry about putting the wire underneath the hooks because it's the last phase. So this one will probably be the easiest out of the 3 to do. But if you wanted to look aesthetically pleasing, then go underneath the hooks, but it's so much harder on phase C to do that. So I just do it whatever the wire wants to do. I just wind it around 30 times, and if the wire is underneath the hooks, then it's underneath it, and if it's not, then it's not. So I just completed the 30th turn of the first part of phase C, and that's what it looks like so far. And that's what the top of mine looks like. So it's not very pleasing from the eye, but made it a lot easier. And then the bottom part isn't underneath the hooks either. But the reason that we put it underneath the hooks for phase A and B is so that phase C would be much easier, which it is. Okay, so I just finished the 30th turn on the last one for phase C, and this is how mine looks so far. All the slots are filled in with wire. This is the top part. The ones that you can see that are above the hooks are just phase C, so you can kind of see how the symmetry works with it. And then on the bottom, the same thing. Phase C does not go underneath the hooks. It can, but for simplicity, I don't do it, and it's not necessary. So then what we're going to do is take the end part of phase C and try and get it underneath all the other wires. It's not necessary to do this, but again, for aesthetics, or I just like it when it's all, when the end part is hooked under there. And then we're going to take our scissors and cut phase C at the same length as the rest of them. Okay. Now make sure it's still in the right slot. And then put the end, phase C, in the bottom part, and this guy right here. And make sure it goes all the way through. And pull it through. And then tape it down. And that marks the end of winding your generator core. Once all the phases have been wound around it, then you can either put it aside to do the next part, or you can take all the tape off and remove your core from the tool. So the long ones, these guys, are what's going to be connecting to the rest of your generator. And then the short guys over here, these small little guys, are going to be twisted together and tied off to ground.